Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, a special edition of the Terrible Podcast, Pittsburgh Steelers Training Camp 2024. I am Dave Bryan, and joining me as usual once training camp, well, really on any podcast in general, but coming back on his way back from Latrobe, Saint Vincent College, the first practice of 2024. It was an early morning practice at 10:30. We are recording this, if you can believe it, at around 3:45 Eastern time on Thursday. Alex, happy Thursday. Happy first day of training camp. How was your morning, afternoon?
Weird and different, but in very good ways overall. It's weird to be recording this at 3:45 when normally I'd still be at practice under the past schedules. And they'll have some of those on weekends or afternoon practices. So not all episodes and reports will come out hopefully this early. But fun day, good day of work overall. Plenty for us to talk about.
Man, I'm loving this, getting it done early, and most of these practices are going to be early like this. It has my vote there. Okay, at the top of the show, and with this being the first special edition podcast of 2024, we are pleased to have back as a show sponsor once again, Lynn Testa and the fine folks at Touring Plans, touringplans.com. You can follow them on Twitter at Touring Plans. Alex, tell the folks who should already know all about Touring Plans what they should know about Touring Plans.
Yeah, no, Touring Plans has been a staple sponsor of our training camp reports and notes for several years now. So if you're taking a trip to Disney World, Disneyland, Disney Cruise Line, anything Disney related, and want some advice on crowd, how busy is the crowd? What are the best days to go? Best times, not only generally speaking, but per day when things change. How to avoid the waiting in line for hours and hours inside a restaurant, reviews, how to save money, and just overall tips and tricks of the trade from people that know about how to have the best Disney experience possible. Go to touringplans.com and tell them Steelers Depot sent you. So always happy to get that message in my inbox a couple weeks before training camp from Lynn Testa saying, hey, we'd love to sponsor you guys again. We'd love to have them as sponsors. And so continuing to partner up. And again, want to thank him. Want to thank Touring Plans for their long support of our Steelers Depot training camp coverage.
Absolutely. And look, every show we will ask this, but if you would, at least some point during training camp, if you're on Twitter specifically or Facebook or whatnot, find them at Touring Plans and, let them know that you appreciate them sponsoring this show. That'll mean a lot to us, and it'll probably mean a lot to Lynn Testa and the folks there as well, too. All right, Alex, let's get after it. As usual, we start these things off by doing a little bit of housekeeping, as we call it, talking about, injured players or players that didn't practice. And oh boy, we had a notable. We're opening things up with a bang here after this first practice. So why don't you fill the folks in who probably already know the main news by now?
Yeah, not many injuries, but the most notable one is to the quarterback position, and that is quarterback Russell Wilson did not practice today. At first, if you just watched practice, kind of felt like there was a day off type stuff. He looked fine, but Mike Tomlin saying that Wilson woke up on Thursday, probably from those dorm rooms with some calf tightness, and so did not go. I don't know. Do you think Wilson actually stays in the dorm, or does he get to go somewhere else? Who knows? But either way, did not practice. Tomlin said that Wilson wanted to go. It was Tomlin's decision to hold him out, being careful, being smart, the right thing to do. I wouldn't pay no mind. I can't guarantee he'll practice tomorrow, but it's very, very minor. Again, if you just watched him on the field, he walked around fine, didn't have a wrap on, anything like that. So he's going to be okay. This team being just very careful with their starting quarterback, as they should.
Yeah, and Omar Khan addressed the media later on in the day, and just saying they're going to be careful with him. So, and obviously he didn't start off training camp on PUP or anything like that. So, I believe them when they said he just woke up with a little bit of tightness, and they're probably not going to rush him along here. And perfect opportunity to get Justin Fields some snaps early in this thing. So, we will watch it day to day, just like Mike Tomlin and really essentially Omar Khan told us there. So and obviously not practicing the three guys on the PUP/NFI list, and Cole Holcomb, Dean Lowry, and Cordell Patterson as well. So it does, it sounds like they're not going to rush those guys along either. So we'll probably be talking about those three missing a few practices here at the start, and hopefully by sometime, well before training camp gets underway, all three of those guys are back on the field. Anything else? Anybody dinged up, or anybody to watch maybe for tomorrow?
Two notes. Connor Hayward cramped up during 7-on-7s. He missed a couple reps, but he finished out practice. He's fine. Willington Prevley and defensive lineman signed June, I think it was, for some D-line depth. He did not work in individual sessions with the other defensive linemen. I did not see him in team. He did have his helmet on for some just kind of standing around as the punt rush team, but not actually rushing during one special teams period. So there may be something minor with him, but I would call him very limited participant for Thursday's practice. And then we could talk about the guys who did practice that were some positive signs. But I would say Hayward's fine. He cramped up. And then Prevley and his name I'll watch for tomorrow, along with Russell Wilson.
All right, let's talk about four key guys that did practice, meaning Najee Harris, Cameron Hayward, Pat Freiermuth, and Corey Trice Jr., and why that's important.
Yeah, from the Harris, Hayward, Freiermuth standpoint, no hold-ins as far as I can tell. Now, again, today's session, no pads, no tackling, pretty light overall. Will posture and reps change when the pads come on, potentially. Hayward did not participate in the final team session. I assume that's really planned, kind of managing his reps and giving young guys like Isaiah Loudermilk and guys behind him opportunity, but all those guys were full participants in today's practice. And then, of course, Corey Trice Jr. off the ACL tear last year. Knew he worked in the spring, weren't sure if he was going to be full for the start of camp or not. Full participant and no knee brace, which he wore in the spring. So that's a big step for him. He was running 13 corner, so didn't get a ton of reps today, but he was out there, and that's the best thing you can say about his day.
Yeah, and that we were hoping to just get put that behind us now. That we've been watching him all off season and waiting to get to training camp to see if he'd be back out there. And obviously the timetable said that he probably should be. So now we can kind of at least hopefully close the book on talking about Corey Trice and injuries here moving forward. All right. Any other housekeeping before we get into this thing?
Your guy Devin Tompkins just got signed by Carolina, so that's good.
Okay, yeah,
back in the camp.
All right, let's start with the offensive line. Always interested to see the pecking order and the units, and who is where and on what side with these offensive linemen at the start of camp. It gives us a starting point to go from there, moving on into the rest of this thing. So why don't you tell the folks the first team, second team, third team offensive linemen, left to right, and any kind of combination switches maybe from there, if any.
No switches, as far as I could tell. It was the straight same five throughout practice. Not uncommon for the first day. They'll rotate, I'm sure, as things go along, and potentially if injuries do end up striking. First team, left to right, Dan Moore Jr., Isaac Seumalo, Nate Herbig, James Daniels, and Broderick Jones. Second team, O-line, again, left to right, Dylan Cook, Mason McCormick, Zach Frazier, Spencer Anderson, and Troy Fautanu at right tackle. And then third team, again, left to right, Devery Hamilton, Tyler Beach, Ryan McCollum at center, Joey Fisher, right guard, Anderson Hardy at right tackle. So Fautanu working second team right tackle all day. Broderick Jones working first team right tackle all day. Dan Moore Jr. first team left tackle all day. And Herbig getting the nod over Zach Frazier to start off training camp.
All right. Let's see here. And that's not overly surprising all along. We talked about, hey, these veterans are probably going, guys like Dan Moore Jr. and Nate Herbig are likely going to be the day one guys out there now. Don't read too much into that. We'll see where it goes. I mean, what's your take on this set of first teamers?
Generally expected. I think, discussed and agreed that Herbig would probably get the initial nod over Frazier. I hope that Jones will get left tackle reps, and I know Omar Khan spoke about that. We'll talk about that for the Friday show, I'm sure, in more detail about his still desire to have Jones be the left tackle long term, but did not commit to it in the short term. I generally, just short answer, not surprised by it. We'll continue to watch it going forward, but I do hope they do something to give Jones some left tackle reps.
All right. Anything to read into the second or third teamers?
I wouldn't say much overall. I mean, it was basically what we thought. McCormick was almost exclusively a left guard in college, and so that's most natural to him. Dylan Cook being a left tackle. He didn't get a ton of left tackle work last year. It was predominantly right tackle, and so that'll be good to kind of continue to expand his reps and versatility. In terms of actual play, there was some sloppiness, a couple of one or two, at least one definitely bad snap there from Zach Frazier to Kyle Allen. But from the lineup standpoint, nothing that is really shocking to me. Maybe Hardy playing right tackle, but that's a 13 guy. It's not exactly going to be headline news. Thought he might be more of a guard. He played tackle at App State, so that's good for him to get some work there at right tackle.
All right. Obviously, they're not in pads yet, so it's kind of fruitless to get into who's doing what as far as blocking and stuff like that. But talk about maybe some of the drills. I think you talked about them working on some screens and stuff like that in your report.
Yeah, from a pass game standpoint, we saw some screens. There was one, it was on air, not 11 on 11, but it was a screen to, I think, Jonathan Ward, and you saw McCormick and Frazier pull out into space. And so you're going to definitely see some true, running back screens this year, and just hope they're more effective than years past. Run game standpoint, from what I could tell, I'll go back through my notes. It was exclusively zone, a lot of wide zone, outside zone, which is the Arthur Smith calling card. Didn't see one puller or one trap play today. I'm sure those things will come throughout camp, but as you're still early in this, obviously, first day camp process, I know you work things in the spring, but you're still kind of doing some base install stuff and kind of working on the foundations, and those are the foundations of the Arthur Smith led offense.
All right. Any other discussions about the offensive line in total on this day one?
Not terribly. Again, some snapping, a little bit of sloppiness here for the offense overall. Again, Frazier had I think it was a little low. It's hard to tell exactly who to blame. To Kyle Allen, the third string, working second team today, but I'm not going to make a lot of judgments. Seymour had a couple of good run blocks, but again, not in pads. You can't tackle. It's not the right tone and intensity to really be able to judge that group well.
All right, what's there to talk about the tight ends and the pecking order there? And you noted Pat Freiermuth had a nice grab today, and there's a clip of that, I think, floating around on Twitter as well, too. What stuck out with the tight end group?
It was Pat Freiermuth. He was the quarterback's favorite target. I'm going to have to later today tally some of the numbers on Freiermuth in terms of targets and receptions. The one you're referring to came in 7-on-7. Did come against third string safety Nate Meters, but still a good ball from Kyle Allen, and a nice snag over his head for Freiermuth. And so he was definitely, I would call, the leading receiver in the team period today. Justin Fields looked at him from his very first pass, and that kind of was the theme of the day for Freiermuth. Was a guy that was heavily targeted.
All right. Michael Pruitt running ahead of obviously Hot Rod.
That was my initial take. Again, they're going to mix and match these guys. And Williams got reps. He had one nice, I thought, run block that helped spring Michael P. Ryan during one of the team periods. But it did feel like it was, I saw more Pruitt, just more snaps and over Rodney Williams as well. But a lot of, multi tight end personnel, 12 personnel, 13 personnel, use of a fullback we'll talk about here in a second. But the initial feel, at least, was Pruitt getting more work and getting work over Rodney Williams.
All right. Let's see. What about the use of a fullback?
There was use of a fullback. I mean, that is the Arthur Smith, calling card for most of his offenses. Had a couple different guys dabble in that. Jack Coletta, who's kind of the closest thing to a true fullback this roster has. He's a versatile guy at Oregon State. He got a fair amount of reps there. I'll try to count things up later today. Connor Hayward getting work there as well. And then in the last team period for just one play, but notable, Darnell Washington was initially as a kind of I form, the fullback there, and then he shifted over to strong eye and stayed in the pass protect. So you could really say three guys got some level of fullback work today. Coletto the most, followed by Connor Hayward, and then that one snap by Darnell Washington.
All right. How about the running back in the pecking orders and all?
Yeah, it's always tough to evaluate the backs without the pads, and run sessions just don't have the same kind of bite to it overall. I'll have to try to see the pecking order. Obviously, it was Harris first team, Warren second team, no Patterson. Maybe it was more P. Ryan, and then some Edwards, Dejon Edwards, the rookie from Georgia, followed by Jonathan Ward. But they split up these snaps pretty evenly overall, so it's not probably a whole lot to read into right now. But that's kind of the way I would go. Champlin did get some carries as well. Aaron Champlin from Harvard. I probably would say P. Ryan was going over those guys, but I'm not going to obsess over that pecking order right now.
All right. We're going to be talking a lot about this wide receiver group as we get further into training camp, especially, the bottom part of the depth chart. And obviously you got young guy in Roman Wilson, in his first training camp here as well. What are the notable notes that you have as far as the wide receiver groups today?
As a starting point, and again, it is very much a starting point, the top three receivers are, of course, George Pickens, and then I would say Van Jefferson and Calvin Austin. And the initial 11 personnel sets, those were the three. Austin primarily in the slot, Jefferson outside, Pickens outside. That's kind of how they ran it from the starting point throughout practice. Again, a lot of mixing and matching here as well, but that's how I would kind of talk about the top three. Day one is Pickens, Jefferson, and Austin.
Where did Roman Wilson slot in? Just mix and matching and all?
Yeah, I don't know if he really would gotten what I would consider first team reps. It was a lot more backups and not a ton of reps, and really don't have many notes on him. He was after practice with Pat Fryermuth working pretty hard and running some routes and catching passes, but no targets today for him. Didn't really show up in my notes too much. Got some return type work in early special teams periods, catching some punts. So you may see him in the mix for that. He was even in the gunner kind of coverage guy conversation on some of the individual drills they went through during one special teams period. But it's going to be a climb there for Roman Wilson. And again, rookies, they're not going to be anointed anything. We're seeing first round picks run second team, second round picks running second team. So no surprise, a third round guy like Wilson, probably had more limited reps today.
All right. Ray Fittipaldo from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette in his post-practice report online talked about new wide receivers coach Zach Azzanni and George Pickens getting into some sort of a heated exchange late in practice when evidently Azzanni didn't like the way Pickens executed his assignments. Fittipaldo goes on to say Pickens didn't take kindly to Azzanni's words. Some of the other receivers approached Pickens after the exchange, but Pickens was visibly upset. I'm guessing you did not see that.
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't. I'm so focused on, I assume this happened on the sideline after Pickens came out, and they substituted in different people. And I'm just so focused on my notes and obviously what's happening on the field, and I didn't hear it or anything like that. So I know it could become a story, and we'll, of course, have to monitor these things. Azzanni, listen, when Azzanni got hired, what do we say about him? Like, he's a tough love, butt kicker, hard-nosed guy, cares a lot, good coach overall, happy about the hire, but he's going to get under these guys' skin some, and he should. And it's a young group overall, and he was putting those guys to work early, 10 minutes before practice. Everyone else is kind of just hanging out, chilling, maybe some jugs machine, just kind of talking. Azzanni's got all these guys through drills, through shoots, through ball security stuff, trying to punch the ball out. I mean, these guys are working the second they hit the fields, and that's great. It's a young group. It's a new group. It's a group with a lot of competition and battles. And so I'm happy to see that overall, but not surprised to hear that. Again, this stuff, I don't want to make too much out of it. I know with Pickens' backstory, we'll have to monitor it probably more than other players, but it's camp, it's coaching. These things happen. Not the first time it's happened, I'm sure, in a receiver situation. Not the last time it's going to happen in football overall. So, I don't want to go too far to freak out about it. It's worth noting, of course, but I just know the type of coach Azzanni is. These kinds of things will happen, and I think they're hopefully healthy and natural, and guys work through them, and cooler heads will eventually prevail.
And this isn't a surprise, but if you knew nothing that had happened during the offseason, Alex, and you rolled back out there to Latrobe and you saw actually the warm up and all of the wide receivers and how they went about their business, you would say something has changed, probably as a position coach, right?
In terms of the way they kind of conducted practice. Yeah, again, a different feel in terms of, I mean, the big difference to me was just to see them before practice, before the official first horn sounded, to see them work. It reminded me of Alfredo Roberts when that group was really young last year, 2 years ago, Freiermuth, Hayward, Washington. You saw some of it this year too, but those guys would always be working, going through drills before practice, before really anyone else was doing much of anything. You're getting the same feel with that receiver room, which is, I think, totally in character and in line with what Coach Azzani, his personality is and what this receiver room needs. So, yeah, there's definitely, I think, a harder edge to that room this year led by Azzani.
All right. Now let's just talk kind of some takeaways, offensively. Obviously, it's day one. Don't read too much into it, yada, yada. But I think you had a couple of bullet points there in one of those tweets today that kind of stuck out on your overall feel of what you saw out of the offense.
Yeah, I mean, it was really what we expected Arthur Smith to run. A lot of stuff under center, a lot of play fakes, a lot of boots, a decent amount of motion, not a crazy amount, maybe even less than what Matt Canada had run last year. I know that Jalen Warren had said yesterday, probably more motion you're going to get with this offense, and that could come. I'm not making a broad statement about how this offense will work based off that first day. Horizontally getting the ball in the flats against some of those boots, kind of working all levels of the field was an emphasis today. Wide zone, outside zone, run scheme, predominantly, exclusively, I would say. Fullback usage, multiple tight ends, 12 personnel, 13 personnel, that type of stuff. It's really all the things we talked about this summer and really this offseason, this winter, that's now translating to the first day of camp here in the summer.
What anything else to add, maybe schematic wise, before we flip over to the defense?
Nothing big schematically, but to talk about some of the individual play. Van Jefferson it was on 7-on-7s, but a 46-yard grab. He burned the corner. I don't know exactly who it was. It might have been Dante Jackson, but I kind of be guessing just based off of reps. I don't want to say that definitively, but it was a great play by Jefferson. And then just talking about Justin Fields and how he ran the show as the quarterback one today, I thought it was a good practice for him overall. Not perfect, some sloppiness early. It was a penalty early. I think they were kind of, I don't know if it was a false start. There kind of was a lot of moving pieces and maybe some wires got crossed there. I think the second rep of the team period. But I thought, Fields, his first throw to Freiermuth, he went through a second read. He looked to the right initially. It wasn't there. Came back to his left and found Freiermuth for a 5-6 yard gain. That deep ball to Jefferson in 7-on-7s was excellent. A dime on the money there. There was another throw to George Pickens early in practice that maybe wasn't perfectly placed, but certainly catchable, especially for someone like Pickens. And he couldn't corral it, and it was broken up well by Dante Jackson. So I thought Fields had a good day overall for that first time. And again, and finding out, I guess, early this morning, he was going to be the first string quarterback.
Right. And apologize for not really hitting the quarterback room specifically, but, and Plumlee got a few snaps.
Yeah, the benefit of Wilson being out is that Plumlee got a good amount of snaps. I'll have to kind of chart things up, and they didn't go necessarily the 4x4x4 as they usually do. There was a little bit of mixing and matching, and Fields would jump in later in some of the team periods. But yeah, Plumlee, I don't have a whole lot of notes on his performance. Again, a lot of stuff that was short. He looked athletic. He was in the kick return line too, or the punt return line, I think it would have been. So we kind of heard about that late in the spring. He was getting some reps there. I don't know if they're ever going to do it in a game, but I'm not going to rule that out because he's a really good athlete. He was a multi-sport star in college and played some wide receiver at Ole Miss before going back to quarterback and transferring to Central Florida. So he's an athlete and more ways to get him on the field. And today was a good day to get some reps.
And obviously no 7 shots today, right?
Yeah, no 7 shots, which generally the first and last practices, for whatever reason, they don't do 7 shots. They didn't do 7 shots the first practice of camp last year. I don't really know why that is, but they don't do it. They were just doing regular balls at like the 30-yard line of the offense for the first team period today. I think it'll come tomorrow, though, for 7 shots.
All right. So we'll obviously be talking about this quarterback depth chart quite a bit moving forward into this thing. Biggest takeaway as far as the offensive side of football today, what was the most notable thing on the offensive side of football today, period?
Just that this is the Arthur Smith offense and how it looks and how it's constructed. And then again, I don't want to make too much out of one individual day, but Pat Frymuth, I'm sure he saw more targets than any other, player and had more production than any other player. So very early, and we know he's going to be an important part of this offense overall. But that's a guy that just based off one day, which is just one day, but that's a guy that could be heavily involved in this offense, and the quarterbacks were consistently looking his way.
All right, let's shift over to defense and start with the defensive line group there. And obviously no pads or anything like that. So, I think you had a positive note about Liao, and hip, hip, hooray for that.
Yeah, I did a literal hip hip hooray when I saw him knife in a run session and tag the back for a loss. I think he got involved in a play later in team and help kind of redirect and turn back the running back. So it's still long ways to go, Pats, all that kind of stuff, all the caveats. But I thought there were a couple of notable plays for Liao, which is this guy that needs notable plays. And so that was good to start things off that way.
All right. Do you have the breakdown of the groups and all?
Loosely overall, I'll try to find him here somewhere in my notes. First team, Ogunjobi, Benton, and Hayward. Second team, Liao, Adams, Montravius Adams at nose tackle, Loudermilk. And then from there, things kind of got messy. Probably third team left the end, Logan Lee. And then Braden Fehoko at nose tackle, the right the end spot. Probably be occupied by Dean Lowry. Of course, he's on PUP right now. Try to see if I can find, maybe if I have a note here on another defensive end, but you're getting into some sub-package type stuff. But it looks like Jacob Slade running third team right defensive end. And again, with Prevalion maybe dealing with something injury-wise. I don't know if I saw a really bunch of Jonathan Marshall today. I'll have to check that for tomorrow. I don't have him in my notes. He was out there. I saw his 91, but I don't have him really getting reps. I'm sure he got some, and they're just not in my notes, but I'll watch for that tomorrow.
All right. Anything substantial really happen on the field in practice with that group? We hit on the Liao.
Yeah, I thought Adams was getting off of blocks well, but again, not in pads or not. When they're in pads, they do O-line, D-line, which is really fun to kind of just get to watch the individual play of those guys. So that's not going to happen until next Tuesday. And it's probably hard to really draw many conclusions. But for Liao, it was good. For Adams, I thought it was good too. And young guys getting reps.
All right, tell me about the outside linebacker rotation. Some guy named Watt. He's pretty good, isn't he?
He's pretty good. TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, first team. Second team was Nick Herbig, left outside linebacker, Jeremiah Moon, right outside linebacker, also some hand down work because he kind of looks like a defensive end, the dude so big and long. He was kind of playing hand up and hand down. And then Kyron Johnson, David Perales, third team outside linebacker, and then Julius Welshoff kind of mixed into that group as well. I don't know if he's probably splitting snaps between both of those guys, but that's the pecking order.
All right, anything substantial happen with that group as far as on the field?
Yeah, I thought with run defense, again, all things considered, Herbig was able to string out one run by, I think it was Edwards or Shamklin, and Welshoff had a really good rep in run defense of setting the edge and turning the back inside. So, and a guy that's tall is 6'6", legit, and, obviously relatively raw, hasn't played a ton of football in his life, although he spent 4 years at Michigan, but transferred last year to Charlotte and got hurt and missed 3/4 of the season. So just one rep, but that caught my attention.
All right, how about the inside linebacker group? I saw one clip floating around on the old Twitter machine of Peyton Wilson getting shot out of the cannon.
Is it on a rollout by, I think, Kyle Allen?
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to see exactly because, again, some mixing and matching an inside backer. But, yeah, you could see the athleticism there. I think that play you're talking about, there was a boot to the right by Kyle Allen. You saw Peyton Wilson give chase, and I think he forced a throwaway by Allen, 10 yards out of bounds. So you see the athleticism for him. It was Robertson, Queen as your starters, and then some rotations behind. Really, I would call second team for day one, Peyton Wilson, Mark Robinson. And then from there, it kind of got really messy of some Jacoby Windman, Tyler Matakevich in there. A little bit of Tyler Murray, but didn't see a ton of him overall. So that's kind of the way the group started out.
And they're not, are they even thudding much?
No, I mean, it's really a lot of, tag. You're not really able to do much. Really, any collisions are generally accidental. Right. I mean, the lines get after it obviously a bit, but they know they got to stay on their feet overall and not trying to get anyone hurt here so early in camp.
All right. The ever important slot position, or anything sub package inside, whether it be nickel, what have you. Seem to be some notable kind of flipping and flopping going on there.
Yeah, the two guys that I saw today, and the one funny thing about when you face an Arthur Smith offense is you don't see a ton of 11 personnel. You don't get the slot corner out there as much as you might other teams. And listen, in camp, it's situational, it's game planned out. So sometimes you're just working on specific things. It's not always indicative of how your offense is going to run. You may in a run period say, well, let's go heavy personnel. We're just going to rep this stuff because we need to get those reps in. And then here's a third down situation. We're going to go, call it 3rd and 7, we'll be in 11 personnel and put the defense in sub packages. So I understand, it's not random the way they run practice, but I didn't see a ton of slot work today because Pittsburgh was in so much 12-13 personnel, but Deshaun Elliott was getting the initial reps there. That's a strong safety. They had a 3-safety package of Deshaun Elliott, of course, Minkah Fitzpatrick and Damontae Kazee. Elliott coming down over slot. Then I did see some of Beanie Bishop, the undrafted rookie free agent from West Virginia, getting some slot work as well throughout practice. So it's really those two guys. I didn't see anybody else. Maybe somebody got a rep, but I missed it. They're going to rotate. I imagine tomorrow we're going to talk about Josiah Scott getting slot work or Braylon Arnold getting slot work. That's my expectation. At least we'll check it, of course, but that's how things started. And at least it's worth noting that they're giving Elliott a look at playing kind of true slot corner. Slot corner.
All right. It will be interesting to watch obviously day one, and we're all interested. It's a starting point for us. So we'll have to see how it changes moving forward in this. All right. Outside corner.
Porter and Dante Jackson running first team. No surprises there. Second team, Darius Rush, Kalen Barnes. Third team, Corey Trice Jr. and Anthony Averett. And so Trice working third team as he'll have to work his way and climb the ladder. Kalen Barnes getting some second team reps. A little notable. I don't know if that's a left-right kind of thing or just, merit-based or whatever the case is, but that's where things are starting. Thought Dante Jackson made some plays, had some breakups in practice. That one on Pickens. Good. There was a 7-on-7 where he broke on a slant from Fields intended for Marquez Callaway, broke that up. So run support, he had a good kind of run fill, again, not tackling, but against, I think it was P. Ryan. It's in my notes somewhere. So a nice day for Dante Jackson.
All right. That's good to hear. New Steeler coming over, obviously, in that trade with the Carolina Panthers. So that's good to hear at the start of training camp here. All right. Not a lot of safeties to talk about, as we said prior to this. They had this Polamalu kid at training camp, evidently today. I did not say, he was not reported as an official visitor, though, to the team. So I'm going to guess that they're not going to re-sign Troy Polamalu. Going to go out on a limb there. But talk about the other safeties that are under contract, Alex.
Is that a joke, or was Troy really at practice today?
He was at practice today.
Shoot,
and Steelers.com got a photo of him kneeling over there on the side with Minkah Fitzpatrick and having a conversation over there. So, all right. Well, I knew something you did.
Yeah.
Let's chalk one up for me there.
There you go. Well, very cool. Yeah, I saw Ryan Shazier was actually, he's still in a coaching capacity. I know he did that in the spring some, but Shazier was at practice. I saw Ike Taylor, but yeah, very cool that Troy was there. Not a ton to note overall. We can go through first team, Minkah Fitzpatrick, and Deshaun Elliott. Second team, again, there was a bit more mixing and match. Let me try to pull up my notes here. Kind of some Damontae Kazee, Nate Meters. Second team, Meters kind of surprising there overall. Third team getting some Killebrew and Brian Watts, the rookie, in there. So that's kind of how things went to start. But yeah, there's only those 6 safeties right now. So, it's kind of the easy matches, first team, second team, third team.
I just sent you that tweet in DM so you wouldn't feel left out.
Yeah, I want to see it. Very cool.
All right.
Nice.
Isn't that good? I put on Twitter, if that doesn't warm the cockles of your heart, you probably don't have a heart.
For sure. What a cool photo that is.
Yeah. Good to see Troy back out there. And obviously Shazier, probably going to see him a lot out there during the rest of this summer at training camp there. Where are we? How about, let's see, we got outside linebacker, defensive line, inside linebacker, all the defensive backs. How about some special teams work today?
Yeah, no kickoffs, nothing kickoff related. So we don't have any information about how the initial things will look. No actual punting, no field goals were attempted. It was a lot of kind of skeleton and piece together type stuff. Did see Rodney Williams getting what you would call first team punt coverage work as a wing next to Killebrew, who's the up back. The two guys that's kind of are on the left and right of the up back. In this case, Killebrew. It was Rodney Williams, and then it's kind of mixing the other. I did see some Michael Pruitt getting work there as well, but I think Williams could be a starter on that unit if he were to make the team. I mean, I call them basically gunner drills, but they probably could apply to all kind of coverage units. But I can give you the 19 names that went through the drill because I wrote down all 19 names of guys that I would consider very loosely in the mix to kind of work in a gunner capacity. If you guys want me to rattle them off.
Rattle them off.
All right, offensive players receiving gunner reps in this individual special team session. It was receiver Des Fitzpatrick, running back Jonathan Ward, receiver Scotty Miller, receiver Marquez Callaway, receiver Van Jefferson, receiver Jere Jenkins, receiver Jacob Copeland, receiver Roman Wilson, and receiver Deuce Watts. Defensively in the same drill, cornerback Cam Sutton, cornerback Kalen Barnes, cornerback Darius Rush, cornerback Corey Trice Jr., cornerback Josiah Scott, cornerback Anthony Averett, cornerback Braylon Arnold, safety Ryan Watts, cornerback Beanie Bishop Jr., and I put Kalen Barnes on here twice. Maybe there's only 18 of them, but there you go.
All right. Might have been easier to name the guys not.
Who didn't do it. Tanu did not do it, and that's about it. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Where shall we go from here? Oh, I asked you about the biggest takeaway on the offensive side of football. What was your biggest takeaway on day one, just from everything you saw on the defensive side of football?
I mean, I would say, again, not really picking a lot of winners and losers here, but defense won the day in part because the offense was just a little sloppy overall. I would say Marvin Leal, just getting to notice him a little bit. And we heard the buzz on him from Terrell Austin, kind of, I think, from Leal himself a little bit, like the lights on, like I know how serious this is, all that kind of stuff. So long process, got to show it more than just the first day here of a non-padded practice, but to me, Leal's the guy that sticks out and says, okay, maybe that buzz wasn't all just coach speak and fluff.
All right. How long was the practice today?
Pretty short, and it's the ramp up period. And so they only had 3, full team periods of 11v11. I think it was over a little after noon. It started first horn sounding around 10:30. There'll be longer practices, probably even tomorrow, but certainly next Tuesday when the pads come on. Generally, they're going to be about 2 hours, but it was like 90 minutes today.
All right. Any kind of final takeaways here as we start winding this thing down from day one?
Morning practice, the crowd wasn't as intense as it usually is for first practice. Still a good crowd overall, but not as many people. I don't think were there, especially as practice began. I think as it kind of the day went on, the stands began to fill up, but didn't have maybe quite the same feel because of the different start time. The early morning start time. I actually think, and I don't know this for sure, but it kind of felt like some people didn't realize practice was starting later because as I was leaving, I saw people like getting food and sitting down and setting up chairs. And I'm like, I think you think it's still 2:00 practice and you're going to be disappointed here. So hopefully that didn't happen to anybody, but that was kind of my impression. So weekday practices are 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. The weekend practices are still in the afternoon. Most 1:55. There is one random day where it's 2:55. Check the schedule is the point before you go out there. Don't want you guys to miss practice. So had a different feel, a little less intense from the crowd standpoint, but still plenty of Steelers Nation fans out there, and it was a good day overall.
All right, what time did we start this? About quarter till, right? So what are we? About 40?
About 40 minutes in.
All right, that's where we kind of wanted this thing to go on the first one. Obviously, once we get a little bit deeper into these, we'll try to shorten them. What do we try to get to? About 30, 35? I don't know if we ever really get there or not. Okay, Alex, well, look, I mean, great. Your a very, very wordy diary is already up from day one on SteelersDepot.com. Obviously, on the days that they practice early, we hope to have these. Your reports are up early, and these special edition of the podcast up earlier in the evening as opposed to 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night, depending on time zone that people live in. But certainly do appreciate it. I know you'll be back out there again on Friday, and we will be back after this again Friday afternoon. So In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_underscore Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do, you can donate SteelersDepot.com. Everybody knows the spill from there. So, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast, a special edition of the Terrible Podcast, Pittsburgh Steelers Training Camp 2024 with Dave and Alex.